Hey there, Amplifiers. Manny Torres back with another episode of Small Business Spotlight. And in this episode, I'll be placing the spotlight on another Manny Martinez. Manny is the president and owner of Copa Wealth Strategies. He has been featured on Yahoo Finance, NBC, ABC, Fox News, and Bloomberg for his work as a business advisor and financial planner. As a financial advisor, Manny helps business owners and corporate executives lower or eliminate certain taxes over their lifetimes so they can build fully protected wealth that will impact future generations. Let's dive in. Hey, welcome to the show. I'm excited to have you here. I want to start off by asking what inspired you to do what you do?
Thanks for having me. First of all, I'm glad to be here. What excited me about this career and this career path is the fact that I didn't come from money. I came from a poor family from the Dominican Republic, and not growing up knowing how to save money or where to invest, how to grow wealth, impacted the early part of my early adulthood life. So having gone into an MBA program, learning about business, learning about the stock market, I knew that other people, even if they were somewhat knowledgeable about the markets, didn't know all they needed to know. So I decided to turn the knowledge that I gained over time into a career where I'm helping others to retire, to protect their families, protect their wealth, and build on whatever their families left them as a legacy. So I just decided to try to contribute to the problem, not contribute to the problem, but I decided to try to fix the problem instead of contributing to the problem. So that's where I got into this career as it is.
That's awesome. And it's so funny. I got to say, hey, Manny, and it's using our same name. And as we were talking about before, we both come from families with a lot of Manny's. But moving on to the next question, I wanted to ask you, who's that ideal client for you? Obviously, it'd be great to help family, but for you, who are the people that you love working with? Who can you make the biggest impact with? And who do you really enjoy serving?
That's a great question. People I really enjoy working with are what we call pre-retirees. Anyone kind of 50 and over, it can be 45 and over, but typically 50 and over have amassed some sort of wealth through 401k plans, retirement plans, real estate. They maybe have some adult kids or kids who are about to leave the house and they're going to be empty nesters. Anyone who has retirement on the horizon, 5 years out, 10 years out, even 15 years out. Those are the people that still have enough time to plan and strategize for a long and happy and hopefully successful retirement period in their lives, which can be as much as many 30 years without an income, you're hopefully living just off their assets, i.e. the definition of retirement. So anyone who's in that kind of age range of 50 and over, who's looking to do some planning and strategizing for their retirement are really my ideal client. I don't put a number on, they have to have $1 million of assets saved or anything like that. I know some advisors have a number in place, but in our community, especially in the Latino community where we're supporting our kids, ourselves, and our parents, and are sending money back to the old country, sometimes that wealth that we typically see others being able to save and accumulate goes elsewhere because of the culture and environment that we grew up in. So I don't put a number on it, but anyone who has some wealth and savings that they want to protect and grow so that they can live on that in retirement are really my ideal clients. And that typically starts at around 50 years old and over, more or less.
It's funny to say that I'm actually getting close to that age group, and it's amazing how quickly it comes where you think something's so far in the future, and then the next thing you know, it's right around the corner. So it's something for everyone to be considering, not just the people that are actively at that spot, but for those people that have come up to 50 years and above, or maybe they're realizing that it's a lot closer than they thought it was. What are some of those biggest challenges that you see that they have?
I think the biggest challenge that I see is lack of a strategy, lack of a plan, and lack of accountability. So my job, as much as coming up with a product or service or a high interest rate account or something that kind of focuses on the numbers, my biggest challenge with most people is holding them accountable. I think people want to do what's right by their family and by their future selves, but no one really has held them to a process, to a strategy around how to do that. The first thing I do in my process is I sit down with the couple, if they're married, and I look at, I ask questions really focusing in on the values each of them have around money, the goals, financial goals that require planning and money to achieve, and then a kind of an assessment of where they are today. Because where they are today is the launching point for where they want to be in the future. And I don't think that many people, advisors in this case, focus on that initial conversation around values and goals and go straight for, hey, you got $1 million, let me invest that for you. But there's no why before the what. But I think that's the biggest challenge is helping people think through the underpinning, the underlying reasons why they're looking to build wealth, looking to leave a legacy, looking to help their family out or give money to a church or some sort of other organization. And I think when we get that clear, then we can open up the kind of the different things we can do to achieve those goals. But if you're not used to having that discipline, that accountability, that can often be the most challenging part of this process.
That makes sense. And especially when you're referring to the cultures that people are coming from, what makes them unique and different, it makes sense that they've all got a different why behind them. And you touched on it a little bit, but I'm curious for those people that, as I mentioned, they don't have that plan yet. They're coming to that threshold of being 50 years old. They're starting to say, what am I going to do? I haven't made a plan. What's an actionable insight, maybe that first step that they could take? Maybe before they meet with someone like you to be able to really put their money in a place that can start to work for them.
Well, whether they work with me or don't work with me, I think the my recommendation would be the same, which is have that conversation either amongst themselves if they're a married couple or not, and ask those questions around what are we trying to accomplish with our wealth? What are financial goals that are top of mind? And don't list 35 goals. List one, two, or maximum three. Any more than three is just a laundry list that never gets done. But what are the three key goals that require money and planning to achieve so that you know what the work, the reason and the purpose behind the work you're doing, why you're getting up in the morning, why you're saving some money, why you're making different choices today than you were in the past. If they work with me, that's what I do at no cost or obligation to continue the process. I at least leave my conversation with people with something value added. So I leave them with an actual deliverable. It's called the financial roadmap that addresses those values, those financial goals, and that starting point of where they are today. Even if they take that and work with another advisor, or if they're self-doers, or if they want to engage me to develop the plan, everyone starts with that financial roadmap and it's free, it's no obligation. So whether they do it with me or they do that exercise on their own or with their other advisor, if they have that as part of their process, not many do, that would be my first recommendation because the planning stems from the goals and values. You have the goals and values, leads to the plan, and then you have the list of executable tasks that you need to do from that plan. So you can't jump into a plan without knowing what is it that looking to plan for, right? And you can't execute on the plan without having the plan. So it has to be in order. And it can be that simple. Goals and values leads to a financial plan, i.e. the strategy, leads to the executable tasks that you need to accomplish in order to achieve those goals.
That makes a lot of sense. That's the same way that we work with our clients is making sure that you've got that vision, those goals, those values that are defined so that you can identify where you're at, where you want to go, build the steps between, identify what the obstacles are so that you can overcome them. So that makes a ton of sense. And I'm excited that you're able to help a lot of those people and their families get that plan situated because, as you said, most people don't have those in place. Manny, can you share an example of someone that you've helped through this process?
Sure. Like I said, most everyone that I talk to goes through that three-step process. I recently met with a couple who I went through and did a financial roadmap for. And from that came a real clear agreement between them that what they want is to protect the hard-earned money and wealth that they've accumulated to this point. They had a little less than $1 million accumulated between them. And they're really concerned about the political environment. They're really concerned about the global issues going on in terms of what's happening in terms of Eastern Europe and potential tariff wars with Canada and Mexico, and what impact that's going to have in the market. And they're old enough to remember what happened in the 90s with the tech bubble and what happened in '08 after the financial crisis. And that those values and goals of wanting to protect their wealth, wanting to leave as much behind to their kids, and having them be better off than when they started their lives led to some recommendations around what to do with a portion of those retirement assets. But the retirement assets, and there was a product involved in how to protect those retirement assets, but that came from the goals and values that we discussed and agreed to in step one, as opposed to, all right, man, he's telling us to buy this product, and that doesn't lead to buy-in. It doesn't lead to them knowing that they can trust me, because by having that conversation initially, they knew why they were doing it, the impact of the products that we put in place to their financial goals. And it created a stronger bond between myself and their family. I don't want to get too specific because of confidentiality. That's an example of how going through this process, the end was the product, but the beginning was, what do we want to accomplish? We want to preserve our capital. We want to have it grow in the future, but without any risk of loss, because we want to leave as much behind to our kids and grandkids while having an enjoyable retirement life. So these recommendations that I made at the end addressed all of that. And that's why that process I alluded to earlier is very important.
That makes sense. And thinking in terms of my own family, my own situation, my wife has a certain threshold for tolerance. I've got my own. And so we have to meet in the middle. And then in terms of where you are in life, there's different tolerances, whether you're early in your stage of investing or later. So I can definitely see how having someone like you to guide through those options based on where they at in those different stages and their tolerance levels can really help them feel confident that there's a strategy in place regardless of what happens, because you are able to see a lot of different scenarios and be able to share with them what they may not expect, what they may not know is available, and then know what's the range of things that can happen, and really be able to set that expectations of what they can expect to happen on the back end. So that's really helpful for people, because the unknown is the biggest fear. And I think it's really great that you're able to help these families.
Right. 100%. And I'll harp in on something you just said, is it's the unknown. It's what you don't know that you don't know that really comes back to bite you if you don't have a proper plan. A plan is not perfect. A plan sometimes is outdated the second you print out what the plan is. But it's the interaction with the advisor, between the advisor and the client. It's adjusting expectations, is shifting of goals. Remember, values don't change. Financial goals may change. You may say to me today, I want to buy a house. That's my first and biggest priority. And tomorrow you may say, hey, it's paying off debt. And the next day may be funding my kids' college. So goals can change depending on the circumstance, but values don't. And having a working, dynamic relationship with an advisor, someone who has seen the landscape and knows what's going on and has helped similar clients as these families are, helps to be able to have a different perspective. If I'm telling someone something they already know, I'm not adding value. But if I'm telling them something, they go, wow, yeah, I never thought of that, or I never looked at it from that perspective. Then I'm adding value, and I can help them to be proactive in their planning versus reactive. And unfortunately, a lot of people in my business, in my industry, have a reactive approach to helping their clients. My goal is to be proactive, to get ahead of the game and to come up with ideas that help them before there's a risk of loss or a risk of them not achieving their goals.
Perfect. And that's a good segue as we're kind of going into the next section of this interview, as we work with a lot of advisors that are helping businesses and guide them. And as advisors, we're always looking for what we can learn so that we can provide those perspectives to our clients. Do you have a favorite book or podcast or something that you have absorbed or started to learn from that helps you as you continue to learn and grow as a professional?
I've read many books and looked at many podcasts and YouTube shorts and all of that. But what's coming to mind right now is something I read recently. It's a book by Mel Robbins. It's called The Let Them Theory. It's nothing specifically to do with business or advising or consulting or financial planning per se, but it's a great book because it helps me and anyone who reads it really put things in perspective. There are people going to think what they think, say what they say, And sometimes you just have to let them. And even though the book is called the let them theory, there's two parts to the process. Number one, let them, but number two, let me. If you say, hey, Manny, I don't think XYZ, and I'm going to say, I get it. I'm going to let you have or let them have their opinion, but now it's let me. I'm either going to try to convince you because I value your opinion. I want you to understand. If I think you're just hard-headed and stubborn and there's no change in your mind, I'm just going to let you and I'm going to move on with my life or my day. So the let me part is really the driver in how we should be approaching different situations with our kids, with our parents, with our friends, with our coworkers, with our clients, with our collaborators. So it can be applied to any situation. I really recommend that book because it put a lot of things in perspective. When you let them and then you let me, and when people read the book, they'll understand what that means. It reduces stress, it puts things in perspective, and lets you focus on what's important. And sometimes things are important, and sometimes, guess what? They're not. They're just not important. Sometimes having that fight about who left the fork in the sink is just not that big of a deal if it's going to destroy your morning. So sometimes you have to let them, and then let me. I'm going to put the fork in the dishwasher. I'm going to wash the fork, or I'm going to argue if that's what you think is the best outcome. But at the end of the day, when you have that structure to relationships, it creates a different dynamic. And I apply that to my clients. So even though it's not a financial planning or financial advising or client type of book, it does have implications to how I relate to my clients or to anyone who I talk to about how I can help them. So highly recommend it. Mel Robbins, I love her work, and that's just the latest book that she has out, and it's really made a good impact in my life.
I like Mel Robbins a lot, and I definitely want to check that book out because in today's environment, I think that's really important. And I think it has a lot of great perspectives, as you mentioned, that can help people get through some of the issues that we have nowadays. And I appreciate you sharing that resource. So we've talked on one side in terms of a thought leader's resource that you've learned from, but in your own professional journey, is there a piece of advice that you've learned along your journey that you feel would also help someone along theirs?
Yeah, never. It's going to be something I think people have heard a million times, but yeah, it's true. Never stop learning, never stop being curious. I remember a long time ago when I started in this career, someone said to me, no one's cornered the market on good ideas. So as much as, I mean, I've been in financial services now for 30, almost 36 years now. And I'm still listening to podcasts, still reading books, still going to training webinars, still talking to folks like you so I can learn what you do and how I can help people who are listening to your podcast because you're never done learning. I think the second you make that decision that there's nothing else to learn is the second you're going to start to see a declining business if you're into advising others. So that's my biggest recommendation is always stay curious, always learn, always read. Now with YouTube videos and webinars and Zoom meetings and all of that. There's never any shortage of things out there that we can learn from. Mine tends to be around in the area of financial planning, financial advisory, stock market, etc., because that's the work that I do. But I also go beyond that, like I just said with the Mel Robbins book. So that's my biggest recommendation to people is continue to be curious, continue to read, continue to learn, because there's always something new in the marketplace, AI, that can help us to do things differently in the future and more efficiently in the future.
That's great. And it's awesome to know that other Manny's are on the same wavelength as I am. My business is growth amplifiers, so we're always looking for ways that you can learn more, apply things so that you can amplify what you do because it's not just the one little thing, it's how those things add up and compound over time, much like investing. So really great to hear you say that. Manny, to finish this out, if there's someone out there that's listening, maybe they're coming up on their 50th birthday, they want to make sure that they have their plan in place. What's the best place for them to connect with you and learn more about what you do?
Sure. I will start by saying that 50 and over is where I find a lot of people who need help because of that pre-retirement period of their lives. But if anyone out there wants to have a conversation, wants that financial roadmap, which again is free and no obligation, if they're 35 or 40, they don't have to be 50 to take me up on that offer. Don't feel compelled that if you're not 50, then you can't take advantage. You can. Best way to get in touch with me is really through LinkedIn. My LinkedIn You can look me up, Manny Martinez. I'm in Oregon right now. I'm from New York, but I've been living in Oregon the last 7 years. But they can look me up. It's Manny Martinez NY for New York. So Manny Martinez NY. If you look me up there on LinkedIn, you'll find me. And that's the best way, because there you'll see what I've done in the past. You'll see what I'm doing today, some resources that I have available there. From there, you can take advantage and get on my newsletter list, and you'll get a monthly newsletter just covering what's going on in the markets and different ideas that you can implement as you start to get on your financial planning journey. And again, that's free as well, so no need to worry about that. I just need your email so I can send that to you. But that's the best way to get in touch with me, is through LinkedIn. Again, Manny Martinez NY, no spaces, dots, or anything else. Manny Martinez NY.
Great. So if you are a listener out there, and rather, if you're either 50 or you're at 50 at heart, you just want to plan ahead, but you know that you need that roadmap, go ahead and connect with Manny on LinkedIn and get on his newsletter email list. I receive it. He's got great information that he sends out on that. So great insights coming directly to your email inbox. Thank you so much, Manny, for joining us here today, and hope you have a wonderful week.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
To show your support, take a moment to amplify this message by sharing it online. To connect with me or gain more business growth insights, visit www.growthamplifiers.com. Thank you for your support.